Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live Saturday edition. We're here 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern. But if you missed the show, no worries. You can always catch the replay. Remember, Sunday, the start, sit, stream. That'll be 11 a.m. where you're watching this right now. If you can't get to that one, I will be answering questions after this show for a full hour. So that's 11:30 Eastern on the RotoWire X account that's pinned to my profile at Jim Coventry NFL. But very excited. Every Saturday, we have John Ryan of the Predictive Playbook Sports Channel. You know, John, been almost 30 years as a professional sports bettor. I tell you, when I bring somebody on the show for sports betting, it's somebody who you need to learn from. It's somebody who's an expert. It's not somebody just throwing out some random picks. John gives you strategies. He gives you trends. He gives you numbers. He gives you a winning track record. 68% of his 10-unit bets over the last 4 years, 65% last 3 years, NFL, NCAA football. And we know you only got to hit 52 or so percent, 52 and a half to win. John easily clears that threshold. John, we're always excited to have you in to talk football on Saturdays.
Thanks for having me, Jim. And just so people know, you're the GOAT that I go to for DFS. And once again, last week, you did extraordinarily well with those picks. And, I'm still in shock that the Patriots won Thursday night. I know a lot of my clients thought that I had lost my edge in handicapping and thought I was completely off the reservation. But I have to admit, 21-3, I was thinking, wow, I didn't see that coming. I definitely did not see it coming, but they won the game. That's all that matters.
I'll tell you who else didn't see it coming. The Steelers.
Yeah, I know.
John, when I looked at that game, here was what I thought. I did not think that Pittsburgh would cover against Arizona the week prior. Mike Tomlin has a long history of his teams laying down in easy situations, and they lost that game outright. And I thought, all right, on a short week at home, is there any way they play a letdown game again? Well, the answer is John Ryan's right. That's why you listen to John for your gambling advice, and you get the props from me, but you take the bets from John. John, let's get right to the bets here. Hey, everybody cannot wait to watch this game. Eagles and the Cowboys. The line has been either 3.5 Cowboys. I've seen some 3s. You'll tell us kind of where that's situating. The Eagles, look, the record's great. They win almost every week, but it hasn't been pretty. Yeah, wins don't have to be. There's no style points for wins, but we saw last week against the 49ers. Okay, those little hiccups in the offense we saw, they can be exposed by a good defense. And defensively, they have all kinds of issues. I've said all year, middle of the field, major problems. Cowboys, on the other hand, have they really beaten anybody yet? That's the question. They came close at Philly, but other than that, we got to see. Dallas's defense, love them. Dak Prescott playing at a high level. They're throwing the ball more than running because they realize that of a sustaining running game. John, make sense of all this for us.
Well, I can't wait for this game either, Jim. It's going to be a big showdown. It always is every single year. But in all the previous years, there's so much on the line right now. The Philadelphia radio stations I tuned into I can only literally listen to it for less than like 15 minutes before it gets too negative this week. And as you know, sentiment that I acquire from business intelligence applications that I use in Twitter helped a lot in identifying these plays. And in East Coast markets, the New York and Philly regions, for whatever reason, when the talk show hosts get highly negative and everybody calling in is saying that the Eagles are on the verge of a meltdown and Dallas is going to win this game, I start getting interested. That actually helps my contrarian type of play on Philadelphia this week. And there was one time a couple of years ago, Jim, excuse me, that it was so toxic that you just wouldn't believe it. Like it was fire Sirianni, get rid of the quarterback. Jalen Hurts can't throw the long ball. He's terrible. He's a bum. It was a bust. Well, they went on the road to Detroit as a 3-point favorite and won the game 42-7, I think.
Yeah, whitewash.
So I'm not calling that here, but it does help when you hear that sentiment. I learned that from my Wall Street days in trading. When everybody's bullish, you want to be doing the opposite. When everybody's bearish, then you want to start thinking about doing the opposite. And those are the sea changes. So it's been since 2011 that the Eagles have swept the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys swept them in years since then, but the Eagles haven't done it. I think they're in the perfect position right now to catch the sports betting market off guard and get a huge win here, which would almost secure them as the number 1 seed in the playoffs down the stretch. They do play a high school team out of New York called the Giants, I think, through the last 3 years, games of the year. And also Arizona is sandwiched in there. But you can't take anything for granted in the NFL, as we saw with the Steelers losing back-to-back games to absolutely terrible teams. So the Eagles still have a lot of work to do, but this is like it to get the number 1 seed, I think. So both teams are surprisingly very even on offense. They both average 64 plays per game. Dallas averages 370 yards per game, and the Eagles average 362 yards per game on offense. So you wouldn't necessarily think that. You would think that, oh my goodness, Dallas is one of the best offenses like in the last 10 years. That's true when they're playing at home. On the road, they're only averaging 24.3. I'm sorry, the Eagles are averaging 24.3 on the road this year, and Dallas here is averaging 32.3 overall, 41 per game at home. But keep in mind, it's a small sample size, and a lot of these teams, Kansas City included, can score, far less than that. And I don't think this Eagles defense is going to play as bad as they have in the secondary. After all, they played the last 3 games, and this is the last game of a gauntlet of six of the elite teams in all of football. Dallas at home, bye week, Kansas City. Then they played Buffalo in an overtime game, and then they took on the 49ers, who really walloped them. But that, I think, showed that the 49ers may not be as good as they looked that night, and the Eagles aren't as bad. It's just kind of something I call like there's bad losses, there's great wins, but then there's normal losses and wins. And I think that was just a loss that was on the card. It was scheduling. It was not anything inherent in the play calling or how the defense played. They were just massively tired. So the point is that they've had 7 days now to put a game plan together for these Cowboys, and that's got to feel like a bye week to them. And plus Dallas Goedert comes back, and this team is healthier than it has been since week 1 of this season. So I do see them getting the job done. I have a pretty good system here too. Then the analytical side, we're going to bet on road teams priced between 3 and 7 points as an underdog that have 2 or fewer losses, and that defeated that divisional foe they're facing the previous game. Also, who has 3 or more losses in the previous meeting, have gone 17-13 straight up, and 20-10 ATS for 67%. So you have a team, 2 losses is the Eagles, 3 losses is Dallas. That fits the criteria. And of course, the Eagles are a 3.5 point dog now, which I think could go to 4 because the betting enthusiasm is, oh my goodness, Dallas at home, that's a lock. Well, it's not. So I think the Eagles are going to win.
John, and I love when you mentioned earlier the contrarian idea, and it is true. I mean, there's an old line, the masses are asses, and I don't know that's ever been dispelled. And commonly, how has Vegas built their empire? Well, they built it on the backs of losers, and that hasn't changed, and that is not going to change. So contrarian lifestyle is usually profitable. It's never comfortable, but it's often profitable. So the great analysis is always on that, John. So John is backing the Eagles against the Cowboys. If you're liking the show, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button if you're on RotoWire YouTube. Also, if you want a free subscription to RotoWire, you can see on the bottom of the screen, you go to rotowire.com/Jim, set you up with 2 days of free access, no credit card needed, just an email address, get behind the paywall, see if you like it. If you do, love to have you on the RotoWire team. All right, we're going to talk some DFS here. Now, first of all, look, I'm not going to specify players in the Cowboys-Eagles games. Fire them up. Fire up those guys. I don't have to tell you who they are. You could go with Prescott. You could go with Hurts. You could go with the receivers. You could go with Ferguson, A.J. Brown, who didn't do great in the first game. You could go with CeeDee Lamb, who went off against him. All those players. I don't need to tell you to start your Eagles and Cowboys if you're inclined to. But now let's go other quarterbacks and running backs here. Justin Fields, 6,800 against Detroit. Played Detroit 3 times. Run for over 100 yards in each game. DraftKings, you get the 3-point bonus for over 100 yards. Detroit does not have the personnel to deal with Fields as a runner. The Bears have gotten better at using Fields on designed runs. Not so much against Minnesota with all the blitzing. It was a dangerous game. He did get enough rushing yards in that game, but they know they can deploy him as a runner against Detroit, and they should continue to do that. Brock Purdy still doesn't get much respect. 6,500 against Seattle. What I think will happen here is Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner, two very good football players in some ways. They can't cover. The 49ers are phenomenal at getting, and you saw it against the Eagles, they find the mismatch, and they'll either put Debo on the mismatch or Kittle or Ayuk or McCaffrey, and good luck. Well, with two marks, one at safety, one at linebacker, fire it up. Brock Purdy is going to be able to make those throws all day long. Gardner Minshew, 5,400 at Cincinnati. Now, this one is GPP only. Don't play this in a cash game because there's a chance where Zach Moss gets going on the ground. But this game could be higher scoring than we think. Jake Browning showed well in the Monday night game. This could be a higher scoring game. 5,400 Minshew runs a little bit. GPP only. Getting cheap now. Baker Mayfield, 5,300 at Atlanta. We like Mayfield under certain circumstances. First of all, Atlanta, they're what we call a pass funnel defense. They're number one against the run by some metrics. Some people will quibble that they're outstanding against the run. And Tampa, when they face good run defenses, they can't run. Rachaad White's fine against bad run defenses, not here. Well, they're going to have to throw. And now you got Mike Evans and a disgruntled Chris Godwin, who had no catches. He had a touchdown run last week. I do think both of them get involved here, even Cade Otton. Baker Mayfield's a nice, cheap play. And I told you last week to hold your nose and play Joe Flacco, and he overdid my expectations. I said he can get you 220 and 2. He got you 250 and 2. They're playing Jacksonville this week. If you want to go cheap, this is if Amari Cooper plays, and right now he practiced Friday. If he gets cleared from concussion protocol, Joe Flacco looks competent, and he's only 4,700. And again, I could see a 2-touchdown game again out of him and another 220 plus. And at 4,700, again, you could do a lot with a lineup. Let's go to running back. Alvin Kamara, 8,200 is Carolina. Carolina is good against receiving backs. I'm going to give them that. But you can run on them. And New Orleans is a 5-point favorite here. There is a good chance they play with some of a lead here. Their defense, New Orleans, is very good at home. Carolina does not have a great offense. If they play with the lead, Kamara has gotten heavy volume. And Taysom Hill is banged up. That is huge. He didn't practice all week. If Taysom Hill's out, he steals goal line carries. Well, he can't steal goal line carries if he's inactive. And Alvin Kamara could get multiple touchdowns here. Josh Jacobs, 6,900 against Minnesota. Since Pierce took over as the head coach, all but the game they were trailing big. He's getting 25-plus touches a game. That kind of volume at 6,900, sign me up all day long. James Cook, 6,000 against Kansas City. Now, Kansas City, overrated as a defense, but you can always run on them. Since Joe Brady took over, 200 scrimmage yard games for James Cook, and actually the game before he took over, Cook had a third one. 100 scrimmage yards in 3 straight games. He is being used more in motion. They're getting him in the passing game. I don't remember the number of targets. He's got a bunch of targets in the last 2 games. They're using him more. 6,000, he's cheap. Last one. If you're not going GPP on Gardner Minshew, Zach Moss is only 5,900. And people will be off of him for last week because he did not have a good game. Zach Moss has started 5 games this year. They've mostly been against good run defenses. This is one of the first games against a bad run defense, and he's been very productive most of the year. So go back to him. He'll be fine. All right. What I will tell you, I would say hi to a couple people and get John back for a second. We got a lot of people in the house today. Alex and Eric are with us. Uncle Ted telling us to look out for Jalen Tolbert, who did score and I believe had 40-something yards against Philly last time. Anthony's doing some plumbing. I'm glad you're here with us as well. Vorador's in the house. And then Alex has asked about Keaton Mitchell. We'll answer those at the end. That sounds like any question, we'll answer those at the very end. That sounds like a good plan. All right, John, excited to get another pick here. The Jets are playing the Houston Texans. And the Jets haven't quit on defense. You keep worrying they will, and Zach Wilson coming back certainly isn't exciting anybody, but the defense keeps playing. The Texans, no Dalton Schultz, no Tank Dell. Interesting game. How do you see this one shaking out, John?
Well, this is an interesting game to say the least, and the public obviously is on the Houston Texans, and nobody in their right mind would bet on the Patriots and the Jets in the same week this season, other than myself. I almost wish I would have parlayed the two money line together, but the Jets are still playing hard football. They haven't, just packed it in for the season and given up. So I think the Jets here are the right side. One of the things that is really intriguing over the years of being involved with the Circa contest is that they put out a line at the sports book, independent of the contest, but they give out a line for every single game of all 18 weeks. So you have a benchmark. So this game originally opened, believe it or not, before the season started, with the Jets as an 8.5-point favorite.
Wow, I was guessing 6.
It has now moved to 3.5 dog. And of course, you can analyze the reasons. Aaron Rodgers is out. The list is endless. But nevertheless, that's baked into the number. So now that we have moved 12 full points from the Circa, benchmark, that alone puts me on the Jets. A situation where I would not bet Houston, I'm only going to be on the Jets if my other stuff aligns, and it does. So whenever a line moves 6 or more, it gets my attention. Those picks actually have helped me in the Circa do better than not, because a lot of times, my models won't have 5 picks. It might have 2 or 3. So then I have to dig deeper and get 2 more that I think are going to be good. We're also at the time of the year where you actually want to try to pick games, not necessarily to win, Jim, but ones that if they do win, will jump over a group of people, a higher number of people in front of you in the standings. I hope that made sense.
Yes.
So in this case, I think when we see the Circa stats tomorrow, this could be one of the top most picked teams in the Circa, and that usually doesn't work out too well. It's like 55% against those top picks. But with this line moving 12, it's a clear game on the Jets, and you're going to bet on underdogs 3.5 to 9.5 points in a game involving 2 defenses that are allowing between 17 and 23 points per game, which is pretty much middle of the road over the last 10 seasons. After the halfway point of the season has been completed, and after scoring and allowing 14 or fewer points in their last game. So that sums up everything to the Jets. That system has gone 75% ATS since 1980.
Wow.
1980. There you go. So it's a very rare system, but obviously when it pops up, it gets my attention, and even more so with everything I've said about the Jets. So JETS, Jets.
Cash, CASH, cash. I like that. Fireman Ed could get on that one, I think. Love it, John. Another great pick from John Ryan. Remember, you're giving John a follow at John Ryan Sports 1. John will tell you at the end of the show about how to catch up with him and his work. Those who have questions, we'll try to hit those quickly at the end of the show. More DFS plays. Wide receiver. Well, look, if you're going to go with Justin Fields, even though he has the rushing going, DJ Moore is only 6,500. I don't know what people don't get. He has at least 96 yards and 5 of the, believe the 6 starts with Justin Fields. More flirts with a 100-yarder goes over it almost every time. He had 96 yards against the same Detroit defense when he recently faced him, 7 catches. And that Detroit defense has gotten worse with each passing week against the pass. And we figured it out. Justin Fields realizes, get the ball to DJ Moore. Don't worry about all the screen passes in the last game. That was a Minnesota Vikings specific game plan because of their blitz and drop coverage. Don't worry. We'll see more downfield looks. GPP only. Chris Godwin, 6,000 Atlanta. I know I'm nuts. He hasn't done anything. He ran for a touchdown last week. But you know what? There's been the squeaky wheel thing is going to go on a bit here. Chris Godwin, there were some reports. They were refuted. Godwin's a little frustrated right now. And Godwin's an excellent player. And Mike Evans has been seeing, understandably, a ton of targets. But in this game against Atlanta gets a very little pass rush. I didn't mention it in the Baker Mayfield part. That's a big deal. They get very little pressure. So Baker Mayfield is not going to have to just throw it up to Mike Evans because I don't have time and get it to him. Chris Godwin will have more opportunity. GPP only. He's not safe at all. But this could be that game where Godwin goes over 100 and scores a touchdown for you. So again, I do think he has an opportunity in this game. Rashee Rice, 5,400 against Buffalo. I think Buffalo is going to pour on some points here. They have over 32 points in the 2 games since Joe Brady took over. That Kansas City defense gets talked up. Teams that are good on offense can score on them, and I don't see a problem. Josh Allen going to run a little bit more. They're going to push the scoreboard. Rashee Rice is one of the only reliable players they have. Obviously, Travis Kelce's there as a receiver, and he's seeing the looks now. So 5,400 is super cheap in a game that should shoot out. Drake London. I know. 4,600.
Mm-hmm.
In Drake London's 4 home games, he has posted strong yardage in every one, minimum of 67 yards, gone over 100 a couple times. But at home, we know the Desmond Ridder thing. Ridder is much better at home than on the road. And Drake London faces Tampa Bay. Jamel Dean is out. Carlton Davis, the other outside corner, has not been playing well this year. He's been banged up on and off all year. So Drake London, again, most weeks we ignore him. GPP only because there's always volatility. Odell Beckham, 3,800 against the Rams, playing the team he helped get to the Super Bowl before he tore his ACL. But the reason I like Beckham here is that Baltimore offensive line should be able to handle the pass rush. Byron Young's questionable, by the way, and then Aaron Donald, of course, legendary Aaron Donald. But I think they hold him off. And that secondary in LA, terrible secondary. Now, I know there's some weather issues in Baltimore, but Odell Beckham is going to get downfield. And he should get 1 or 2 shots downfield in this game. And I think he converts them. Coming out of the bye, rest up his nicks, should be in great shape. Last one, GPP only. You want to save some money. Jonathan Mingo's 3,500 at the Saints. Look, Saints are a very good defense. Jonathan Mingo's been getting pounded with targets the last 5 weeks, at least 6 targets in a game. The last 2 weeks, the production's been over 65 yards in each game. He is starting to put it together. They're getting him the ball. Mingo's a great punt play with some upside. Tight ends, TJ Hawkinson, 6,000 against the Raiders. Look, I know Justin Jefferson's coming back, but we've already seen that the reliability, that safety blanket that Hawkinson offers Josh Dobbs, and after Dobbs imploded in a nationally televised game in his last outing, that comfort of going to Hawkinson is going to be in 6,000. Again, he could get you 8 catches, 70 yards, and do very well for you. I had Taysom Hill on the list. I don't think he's playing, so we're taking him off the list. I expect him to be out in this game, but he would have been a good play. Gerald Everett, 3,400 against Denver. I don't like much for the Chargers in this game, but Denver, the one thing, although their defense has gotten much better, they still can't cover tight ends. And Gerald Everett has been somewhat reliable the last 2 weeks. Not a lot of upside, but a good floor. Finally, Cade Otton. If you're doing that Baker Mayfield, then if we're going to fade Mike Evans this week, which is always dangerous, and we're going to go with Godwin, if you want to get a third piece of that, we already got Drake London in that stack, throw Cade Otton in there, 3,100. Atlanta's terrible against tight ends. He won't need much to catch. Finally, defenses. Broncos, 2,800 against the Chargers. Broncos are really bad against the run, but they get a lot of takeaways. Last week, they didn't. The Chargers, they can't run. No run blocking. Austin Eckler doesn't look too hot right now. Broncos, a good play. Saints, 3,900 against Carolina. If you're going to spend up, again, much better at home than on the road. Finally, the Bills, 2,500. That's your cheap one against Kansas City. Kansas City's not been getting it done. They've been making mistakes. That's your cheap play. All right, John, we got one more great game to cover here. We are going to talk about the Giants and the Packers. And I know where you're going with this one. I'm excited about it because I feel exactly the same way. But the Packers, look, this is an improved team. They are looking at a playoff spot right now. The Giants, it's been a rough season for them. But Monday night game, little bit of weather. Shouldn't be too bad, though. How do you handicap this game?
Well, this one is a tried and true system bet, purely, without the help of the fundamentals. And again, who in the right mind is going to be betting on the Giants? It's almost a situation where I feel like I'm taking these 3 dogs and parlaying them together, money line, and use pizza money and just see what happens. Because even $10 is going to pay off pretty big, because the Giants are plus 350 in this one, and the Eagles are going to be basically plus 105, maybe 110, and the Jets too are going to be around plus 250. So if all 3 win, $10 can turn into 80, 90, even 100. So I think it's a very good opportunity. But keep in mind the odds are against you hitting it. But for pizza money, and you want to have a little bit of contrarian fun, so to speak, then those are the 3 teams. But the Giants here, are actually supported because Green Bay's in a horrible situation in this game, believe it or not. The fact that they're coming off 3 consecutive home games puts them into a bind with a system that's hit 68%. They're also coming off back-to-back upset wins. Also, not a good trend for the following game. Of course, NFL teams try to win every game, but in situations where they have won 2 games, especially at home, that were upset wins as a dog. The last one was Kansas City, and I was on Green Bay, as you know, and that worked out pretty well too. But again, it's a scary bet that you have to take a dog that truly has fleas, for lack of a better word, and you're expecting them to play like a thoroughbred. And I do think that the Giants defense will play like a thoroughbred. The offense is questionable, but that keeps Green Bay in touch on the scoreboard. Green Bay's in a great situation now to make a run at the playoffs, but they are prone to regression here from the analytical side of the models, and they're due for a clunker. They may not, but the situation warrants a clunker. So we're going to bet on underdogs, including Pick'em. And this team is not a good one, Jim. It's getting outscored by 4 or more points per game. And after playing a game in which an anemic, rather be watching paint dry type of game, where 19 points or fewer were scored. And that sums up the Giants' season almost. That set of parameters, 96 and 52 for 65%. Again, going all the way back to 1980. And let's see, recently, over the last 10 seasons, 75% against the spread, 12-3. Over the last 5 seasons, it's gone 7-1 against the spread. That supports the Giants. I like them, and don't be surprised if they win the game outright.
Yeah, and John, of course, you gave all the trends, a great rationale. The real common man addition to that is what a letdown spot for the Packers. It's a this is not a grizzled veteran team. Beat the Chiefs, letdown game. Again, that's the least. You gave all the compelling advice, but yeah, I just see this a letdown. They don't be surprised if they lose by double digits here. Oh my gosh, that'd be scary. John Ryan is always calling the winners for us. Couple quick comments we'll take from here. Uncle Ted, Patrick Taylor may not be a thing anymore. Aaron Jones looks like he's going to play. Dillon is only maintenance on the injury report, so he probably reverts to the practice squad or another team's practice squad as he was before they called him up. Taysom Hill is not officially out, but he missed the entire week of practice with hand and foot injuries. But Dennis Allen, the coach, said the foot is the bigger issue. Chad, I don't think we can count on Jimmy Graham. I think he has 3 targets all year. 2 of them were touchdowns, and he caught them. I don't think we can count on that. Chase Brown is seeing increased work, definitely flex play. And let me see. If anybody else has any other questions, I am doing them on the Twitter takeover of the RotoWire X at Jim Coventry NFL at RotoWire for the next hour. Send the questions there, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. John, tell everybody where they can find you and your great work.
Well, you can find me at thepredictiveplaybook.com, also on the X at John Ryan Sports #1. And as a special for listeners of the show, my bowl package for college football has made money 8 consecutive seasons. Actually, back in 2011, humbly said, I went 14-1 against the spread. I'm not expecting to do that anytime soon, maybe never again. But the bowl games really have been the strength of the season for me. And as an introductory price, it's normally $200. So if you're listening to this show, tell me you're listening to the show, and it'll be $50, and I'll throw in the remainder of December NFL free. So that's $50 for the whole bowls through the championship game, and then rest of December NFL for free, just for $50.
John is giving you an offer you can't refuse. The Godfather offer. Definitely hit John up for that. Make sure you're following him. Predictive Playbook at John Ryan Sports 1. Good luck this week, everybody. For John Ryan, I'm Jim Coventry. To start Sit Stream is Sunday 11, where you're watching it right now. Have a great weekend and good luck.